Welcome back to Forces Education. This is Zed. Today I'm going to be giving an update on ticker TNXP. Now, this one here has been on my watch list ever since they're offering on the 13th and have exited the offering pretty well. Make sure you share, subscribe, and like this video, especially sharing and turning on your notifications to help this channel grow. So without further ado, let's get on to it. And on the very end, I'm going to be going through the news that we got today. A lot of people are screaming that it's bad news or dilution, and here's why I think it's not. Or I think there's a positive news in terms of it. Quickly here, looking in terms of the average directional index, it shows that there's a trend that is forming towards this one here is a positive trend that indicates that it's forming. The willing percent R is sitting somewhere around neutral, so that's good news from the overbought situation we had previously. Momentum, it is still increasing in terms of momentum, but did not lose the rate of momentum. Sorry, did lose a little bit of rate of momentum, but that's not that much of a bit of news. The MACD here is still positive and increasing, so that is good news in terms of my book. The one warning sign here I have on the 1 month 1 day perspective is that the volume has decreased, but we're talking about 240 million in terms of volume increase overall, and then there's around 30 or 20 million difference. So usually the day before when you have higher volume and the day after you have lower volume, sometimes stock price suffers later on in the following days. So you need to watch this carefully. We're going to be moving on towards the 1 month 1 day, but you get to see the 10 SMA is above the 30 EMA and the stock price is above the 50 SMA, so that's amazing. It did have a golden star sometime a little bit, I believe 2 or 3 days ago before it ran, which is a good sign. You get to look here on the 1 hour perspective. You get to see that the average directional index somewhere around early on in the day hit 73.04, which is highly unsustainable and usually is an indication to a trend ending. And it seems that that kind of broke through and dived down to 49.39. So it's still a little bit too high in terms of the trend, but the stock became oversold in terms of 1 hour perspective. So red news there, good news there. Taking a quick look in terms of the MACD, you get to see that it is actually going negative and it doesn't seem to be decreasing. So you might have that the stock price at least still bleeds until the pre-market, so that might be an issue there. Momentum here looks like it actually lost momentum and plunged down a little bit towards closing there. Unbalance doesn't show much that dumping in terms of what happened there. It does still show that there's a lot of people who are probably bag holding. The stock is within the trading action zones where reversals are likely, so that is a good sign there. The stock price is incredibly under the VWAP, so that's a bad sign. The stock price is above the 50 SMA, which is here in purple, and the 200 SMA, which is a good sign. Now the stock is holding right now a little bit closer to 142, which seems to be the current support for the stock. And then following that, you got 1.3, and then the next resistance would be 172. Now let's try it on and move towards the moving averages here. So the moving averages is the CN and the band, and we're going to be taking a look a little bit in terms of the longer movements. So before we do that here, we get to see that the CN numbers here, there's a lot of gap between where the moving average and CN is and where the stock price is. So that's a little bit of a dangerous sign. And you get to see the unbalanced volume is basically vertical. That might be as well another dangerous sign for me here. And you might want to look a little bit for an out and the next kind of spike in the next day or so. Now going on towards Fibonacci retracements. Take a quick look here. And you get to see that the stock price has broken the Fibonacci retracement support at 149, or it just kind of still bounced around 147, just a little bit under it. So I'm going to say it still has the 1.49 to 1.47 support. The next support, which seems to be confirmed as well with Fibonacci retracements, is around 126. The next resistance seems to be around 1.7 to 1.72 on Fibonacci, and then following that, traditionally 195, 205 Fibonacci, and then 2.1 in terms of traditional. Now trying to go on with a bit of trend lines. I don't see any trend lines here that are very important to me. What I'm going to try to do perhaps is going to try to spread this a little, let's say 20 minutes interval, and try to identify if there's any kind of relevant trends. And perhaps I don't see any relevant trends, but it might be that there's a head and shoulders forming here, which is a negative trend, negative pattern, but you'll have to see a little bit in terms of the pre-market. In terms of if it does bounce back. If it does bounce back, that might be a good sign. If it doesn't and it starts a little bit dipping, that might be a bad sign in terms of this pattern being confirmed. Now going on a little bit towards news. over here on my screen, you'll get to see a bit of the news here. So this one was released, I believe. I don't have the timestamp on it, but later on in the day. And what they're highlighting here is that they're gonna have a rescheduling of the company special meeting of stockholders to Friday, August 28th, 2020 at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So what is in this meeting? So they're gonna be voting to increase the authorized common stock from 150 million to 400 million shares. So that's a little bit of a dangerous sign for some people in terms of screaming maybe, well, perhaps we're getting an offering, or it could be dilution. Even though I think perhaps if this goes through, yes, you're technically diluting the stocks, but their delay of this or their rescheduling for this might actually tell me one thing. You got to think about this stock that needs to gain compliance, right? It needs to stay above $1. If they kind of schedule it a little bit closer with the amount of the COVID catalyst going on, and them, as I said before, they love to throw the name of COVID right and left there. You might have it increase a little or stay substantially higher than that $1 value, all the way till they milk it until somewhere at the end of August, where that dilution, let's say somewhere around, becomes $3. That dilution brings it down to $1.50 at the time, or maybe just $1, so they don't have to do a reverse split. So it's a little bit lesser of two evils in that way if they want to increase the common shares, right? You don't want to have increase the common shares and then followed by a reverse split. That's just my opinion on this stock. Not a lot of other news coming in around here, so it's basically the same kind of iterating news in terms of the last two ones here. Make sure to watch my previous DD in the description. I added it for this one here, where I did dig a little bit into terms of the stocks and this stock. What do you think about the stock? Make sure you mention it down in the comments below. Share, subscribe, and like, and you have a wonderful day.